Are we witnessing the final season of Kyle Shanahan on the 49ers? There are some uncanny similarities between the 2024 49ers and the 2014 49ers, and we'll break them all down, plus more, next on Cohn and Sharma. Morning, welcome to Cohn and Sharma. That's Karan Sharma. I'm Grant Cohn. It is a critical season for Kyle Shanahan, and it feels a little bit like, or a lot like, 2014, the final year for Jim Harbaugh. Karan, you laid it all out to me. Let's break it down for the good people watching. Take it away.
Okay, so for our older 49er fans that, were there for the Harbaugh days, I just want to, 10 years ago, the 49ers, right around Thanksgiving, were 7-4. They were hanging pretty well. They had just won a great game. They had gone to Seattle, a team that they lost to, and frankly, Russell Wilson basically owned them, and they got their asses kicked on Thanksgiving. That's that famous turkey leg. Jed York tweeting, "This is unacceptable." Basically, that was the end of the Niners, and they never really recovered after that. And they played Seattle again, and they lost again to Seattle that same year. They were 7-4, tied with Seattle for first place, or close to it, definitely a wild card team, and they finished 8. They only won one game after that. Mm-hmm. And what I remember, and was strikingly familiar, is that they lost Navarro Bowman prior. Right, they were without their linebacker for the NFC Championship that got injured, and they're without Greenlaw this year. So that's one, but getting past a coach and getting past a player that basically had their number, and they had basically, I think, inside had realized that this is as far as they were going to go. They were never going to beat the team like they were. And
it was getting worse.
It was getting worse, yes.
Yeah.
Because Seattle was getting worse, but it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter because Seattle kept on, because Seattle had a quarterback, right? Until Russell Wilson has gone away, all we know is hey, we beat Seattle. But
it wasn't just that. Yes, Russell Wilson was incredible and they couldn't contain him, but Seattle's defense would make the 49ers offense look awful. It would be like 16 points. 17 points, 3 points,
correct.
3 points. It's like, oh, and that's kind of what, like, the ownage that Pete Carroll had over Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh is very similar to Steve Spagnuolo versus Kyle Shanahan.
Very much so. So much so that they had to essentially look themselves in the mirror and say, this group isn't going to cut it, right? And so that brings me to the point of Kyle, kind of at crossroads. He's got some few teams that he just simply cannot beat. And the team that he has to beat, Kansas City, say the 49ers run the table like they did last year. Say they do really well. Outside of Baltimore and the AFC, is there anyone that's really going to beat the Chiefs? Like, the Chiefs stink, but they just got reinforcements. They're going to only get better.
And I'm not even sure Baltimore could have the ultimate team and they can still find a way to not win in the playoffs.
Yes, because their quarterback kind of has the yips a little bit when it comes
to
little bit, right?
Yep.
And so, does anyone feel really confident in February when they're playing the Chiefs that they're going to win? No.
And you know who feels the least confident? The 49ers.
The players.
Because it's been demonstrated. They can't beat them, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, if this was the time to beat them, even Vegas agreed. I mean, the line had ballooned to 3 or 2.5 before the game had started. Kansas City was ripe for the taking. They did not have a functioning offense, and it only got worse because their player got injured before Ayuk's player, got injured, and that it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And I think one thing that I am seeing, and one thing that ended up being Harbaugh's downfall, was the players stopped believing in Harbaugh. That message basically became, what does this guy know? We've been to this many, he rolled those players really hard. And sometimes those players, looking back, were like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. What are we doing? And I'm not hearing Kyle's a genius and he calls a touchdown before he calls it now, are we?
Nope. No, that was like 5 years ago. We used to hear that all the time, but now it's like, how could you not roll your eyes a little bit if you're a veteran on this team who's heard Kyle Shanahan talk about how he's going to beat the Chiefs like 5 times, and every time he can't find a way to pick up the blitz, every time he can't find a hot route. Like at a certain point, 30 years old, like, man, it's like I've been listening to this guy forever, and I just don't buy it anymore.
And that happens. There's a reason why, like, this happens more often than not. The coach's message often goes stale with that group. And if that core group gets old and they've accomplished a lot of things, but they end up going down, usually the coach leaves with them. That's a very normal thing. Kyle's on year 8, right? Year 8. And I think it's been 6 years that they have been relevant. Being relevant 6 years roughly in the NFL is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's better than most franchises in a row. I mean, you know what I mean? I also think the team got old fast because they played probably the equivalents of another season when you add in the playoffs, the Super Bowls, even the losses. They don't lose early, they lose late. So they're playing 2 or 3, 4 extra games a year. You times that by 3 or 4 years, you almost have a full season of bruising on your body. And here's the other thing, their recovery time, it like Harbaugh, that team got in 14, that team got old so quickly because they had gone through 3 NFC championships in a row and a Super Bowl, and they ran out of gas.
Yeah, like we didn't know it, but Patrick Willis was at the end. Vernon Davis was approaching the end. Frank Gore would go on to play for a very long time.
He's the exception.
But he was pretty much at the end of his prime. And Colin Kaepernick was approaching the end of his era of being, a factor.
So great
winning
point.
player.
That's another point. Can Brock prevent what happened to Colin because the league caught up with Colin that year? I think more so than ever when it came to passing downs.
And what's scary about Brock is we're seeing some troubling splits, like his numbers against zone versus his numbers against man. Sure, if Christian McCaffrey's out there, then you're going to have good numbers against both because he can shred it. But if you take away the offensive player of the year and there's no replacement for that, like there's no Marshall Faulk 2.0, there's no Christian McCaffrey 2.0, are you just ordinary? Replaceable? I guess we'll find out.
I think he has great pocket awareness.
Yes.
I think he's got some good moxie. I think he's a good leader. I just think
he works hard.
He works hard. He is very much the anti-Jimmy where he's
accountable.
He's accountable. I just think the windows have become tighter and tighter. And here's the other thing and we can get to this other point. Kyle really hasn't matched his personnel with what he's trying to do. So what does that mean? Like Brock is holding the ball. He's going for deep shots. Mm-hmm. He's got yak guys. He doesn't have exceptional route runners. He doesn't have burners. He's got people that run in space and truckload people. Well, if you hold on to the ball and you're slow, guess what's going to happen? The DB is going to catch up and you're going to have a window that's this big, right, to throw in. Yep. And I have seen more contested catches and more contested incompletions than I have all of last season. Like all of last season. And so I think that has to do a little bit of personnel. I also, in my mind, Kyle hasn't been, I feel like Kyle's like, we'll just get to 500. I'm simplifying this, but just get to 500 until we get Christian and everything's going to be okay. Like that's what he's been.
We don't have to actually make any adjustments because Christian is coming back. Aslan is on the move. Sir Cash Money says, do you think Radon or Morgott deserve to become Eldon Lord? I like Radon, but in my opinion, Morgott was more deserving of the title because of his upbringing. I don't know what that means. Who the Eldon Lord is.
Is the Lord of the Rings reference?
Maybe not. I read those books. AFC feels like the SEC of the NFL. Niners are just Pac-12 chances proper. It's not just the Chiefs, it's the Ravens, and we'll find out how the Niners do against the Bills in a month.
I'll be at that game. It'll be interesting to see how they do against Josh Allen. He tore them up a couple of years ago.
Okay, so there's a lot of similarities between 2014 and 2024, but big difference is Jed York. He has changed a lot in the last 10 years, and not just that, I feel like he had more control and power over the organization 10 years ago. And now I think it's more collaborative effort with his parents. I can't prove it. But how do you feel, Jed in particular, the Yorks as a family might handle this transition, or whatever you want to call this crossroads juncture in an era, in a regime? How might they handle this similarly or different to the way they handled Harbaugh 10 years ago?
I think, well, if people don't remember, they essentially chose Balky over Harbaugh, right?
Mhm.
And I think they made that mistake because I think they're not a football family. The previous owner was. He lived it, he breathed it, he was indoctrinated in it, he was part of that football culture. I don't think the Yorks have anything to do with football when they're outside of like coming into games or anything like that. They don't have a network of people, so they relied on their general manager, much like they're doing now with, you know, their general manager right now and John Lynch. But I do feel like they saw what a bad hire and what down they live in California, man. People are just not going to show up if the team sucks. And that's lost revenue. So I feel like they need to decide what is more important, being relevant, right? With a coach that has a name value, because before they just thought that they could just turn it around. They found out after 3 or 5 years that it wasn't, and I think that's scar tissue. They're not going to fire Kyle immediately, and I think that's the biggest difference. I think Kyle has a little bit of a longer leash, and for people who don't think that Kyle is safe, they fired a bunch of coaches after 1 year. They fired Chip Kelly after 1 year. Before that, it was Tom Sula. They had 3 or 4 year contracts. They're still paying those coaches, right? Or just finishing up paying those coaches. They had a good stretch where they only had a coach for a year and then they were gone. And I don't think they want that kind of instability.
I disagree. Well, let's have a discussion right now.
Okay.
Because I think we found a good one.
Yes.
If Kyle misses the playoffs, I think they might do something. If he loses early in the playoffs, I think they should do something. If he misses the playoffs entirely the way Harbaugh did in 2014, I think they might do something. Now, with Harbaugh, they didn't fire him, right? They mutually agreed to part ways because it's a bad look to fire someone that's successful with that kind of a winning percentage, even if he hasn't won a Super Bowl. It would also be a bad look to fire Kyle Shanahan because he's been to the mountaintop, even though he hasn't really been there. So they could trade him. He could resign. They could do something behind closed doors. But if they feel they could get someone better, like Ben Johnson's available and they think he's better and this is the year to get him, and Kyle misses the playoffs,
so
I don't know if he's safe.
I'll give you a rebuttal. The person that's not safe is John.
Why?
Because they could do so people tend to do the exact opposite. What did Jed do? He fired Harbaugh, right?
And he kept the GM.
Right?
Yeah.
He may say, listen, Kyle, I love you, but you're no longer in charge of personnel. And this fun thing that you have with John, where John is like the guy, but you're really the puppeteer in the background. We're getting a real GM, and you're not, and you're just charge of the football decisions. That's what we're gonna do. And we're done.
Okay. I like your rebuttal very much. Now let me rebut your rebuttal because that was a great rebuttal. Kyle says, I quit. I'm not doing that. You need me more than I need you. All these teams would want me, and they would give me personnel power. I quit.
Would they though? Would they? Think
Here's
about
the
it.
thing.
Would they though?
Am I wrong? Mike Shanahan had the personnel power for years in Denver, did nothing with it, got fired, went to Washington. Did he not get it again?
Before he got fired, they took away his
in Washington
GM duties. No, in Denver.
In Denver.
They took it away. It away. And then he got fired.
Okay.
Then he got fired.
Because he was formerly like the vice president of the organization.
He had everything. He
had everything.
Everything. He
was like Napoleon Bonaparte of Denver.
I'm not gonna lie, and when you grow up with that, he wants to right exactly.
And I think Kyle has that much power. It's just people don't realize it.
Correct. I don't think people realize like all these like weird draft picks, they're done because Kyle's like, I need another receiver.
And no one can veto me in this organization. No one.
No.
I mean, like, Jed could, but he hasn't.
Don't you feel like the last 5 weeks have been Kyle trying to see if he can beat man-to-man coverage at the expense of winning, like to show like if he does go up against that he will be, but he doesn't have the personnel, so he's not even utilizing his where was that screen to Cowing throughout the game that I saw Matthew Stafford do? Where was that?
Can I do some irresponsible speculation? What if he's actually showing the Yorks what life without Christian McCaffrey will look like for Brock Purdy before they give him a contract worth $60 million a year? It seems like the Yorks are dying to give Brock that contract. And I don't know how Kyle Shanahan feels about that. In fact, I always feel like Kyle's lower on his quarterbacks than I am. I think I thought higher of Jimmy Garoppolo than he did. So maybe this is Kyle's be like, well, I mean, Christian's going to come back. He's going to save our season. We'll be fine. But in the meantime, like, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like.
Don't you
Pay him
feel
if you
like,
want.
Don't you feel like so the thing that I was very interested to see is that Brock at the Chiefs game always went to, I feel like what Kyle said, go here no matter what, even though we could see like Kittle wide open. And before, I feel like Brock would take those checkdowns. And I feel like in Kyle's mind, he is telling Brock, if you want to be the best, just go to your first read. It's going to be open. Throw it. We're going to be good. And I feel like when it's not there, the best play is him scrambling and going off script because he can and Jimmy couldn't. But I feel like he needs to be like, the Jimmy Gimmies need to be back. That needs to be the first thing. And then everything else comes after.
But if you can't win a game where they're like, look, if you can't be the kind of offense where they're like, if you're going to sell out to stop the run, we'll throw 55 times. We don't care. We'll win that way. If you don't feel that way about your quarterback, what are you paying $60 million a year for? If teams come into the game and their game plan is, we want to force your quarterback to beat us, and the Niners are like, we don't want to get into that game, what are you paying your quarterback for? It seems to me
outside of Mahomes, you can get outside of Mahomes. That's my rebuttal would be that would be every defenses. They would want to make you one-dimensional because you can intercept the ball when they're passing it, right? There's more things that can go wrong. So as a defense,
no, but what I'm saying is like, if you're going to play the Packers and you're a defensive coordinator, are you thinking, man, I really want to make Jordan Love beat me? Like, I'm not selling out to stop Josh Jacobs. I don't want Jordan Love. Jordan Love will beat me if I play single high and dare him to.
I would say Jordan Love is an interception machine. He's thrown a lot of boneheaded picks. I would say that's better better. Right there, because here's the other thing, Grant. Outside of Mahomes, we don't have those transcended players. We don't have a Drew Brees. We don't have those players because they've retired, right? That
Peyton
will
Manning's
carve you
gone.
up. Peyton Manning's gone. Even like, Phillip Rivers, those quarterbacks that would just cut you up.
That's true.
Those quarterbacks don't exist anymore because of how they just don't. They just don't. There's one of one right now, and it's Mahomes. Really, if you think about it, because I live here in upstate New York, as a Bills fan, seen Bills fans, right?
He's not Manning. He does it in his own way.
He does it in his own way. He's not carving you up. He's doing it athletically. And here's the other thing: every Bill fan would say we rather have the running back run, right? We rather have him than Josh being Josh, because Josh being Josh means 60-yard touchdown or pick six. Yeah.
True. Okay. We got some more super chats. Colby Farman says it was an Elden Ring reference. I still don't know what that means.
It's a Lord of the Ring reference.
Elden Ring, I don't think is a Lord of the Ring reference. I think it's like a video game or something.
Okay, maybe.
We're old. Marcelo C says, if we fire Kyle Shanahan, do we get there? If we fire KS, we get there is no better option. Same with Brock. So stop the BS, Grant. Stop, be a hater, and be a real fan. And Bill Belichick won't be an SF. All right, Marcelo, for you, I'll try to stop being a hater and be a real fan. Okay, let's talk about how Kyle Shanahan can help Brock Purdy. Because, I mean, if he gets fired, he won't get fired for a few months. So there are things he can do while he still has the job to help Brock Purdy, to save his job.
So yesterday there was a Thursday night football game where I saw Matthew Stafford, who has, and I don't want to hear excuses, his offensive line is decimated. He's got like backups.
The left tackle went down.
One tackle, right? He's got Puka just came back, right? And Cooper
He
Kupp
looks
just came
slow.
back, right?
Yeah.
And they both
Yeah.
they're not world beaters,
No.
right? And so they both were able to carve up the Vikings defense. And I did not see Brock do this. Just quick passes, 2 seconds, 1.8 seconds, 3 seconds. They moved it along and they dared Minnesota to creep up. And then when they did, they hit them over the top. Why isn't Kyle doing that? It's the same offense. It's the same scheme. I don't understand why you're asking someone who doesn't have a strong arm to begin with, throw to receivers who aren't man-to-man beaters. We have zone beaters with the exceptions of our 2 rookies who we don't have enough information to see how well they're going to do.
Well, here's what I think is a little bit discouraging from the Niners' perspective is like, is inevitable that Brock Purdy was going to get the Jimmy G treatment, which is single high safety, 8 in the box, press man coverage, inside leverage. Like, we don't believe that you can beat us consistently with a steady diet of throws outside the numbers and down the field. So you'll hit us a couple of times for sure. But if that's what we force you to do all game, it's going to be inefficient and there's going to be turnovers. And what I thought was interesting about the Chiefs game is like the 2 biggest throws that Brock hit, the one to Cowing, the one to Kittle, were 2 of his worst throws of the game. 2 of his worst throws.
And you know what? Tom Brady, people rag on him. Any other announcer would have said that's great. Tom was very clear cut. He said they were average throws.
They were. And what's crazy to me is like Darnold hits those throws for touchdowns. Stafford hits those throws for touchdowns.
In stride.
That's why arm strength does kind of matter. And once you finally get exposed to the league over 2-3 years and everyone sees, and there's evidence and stats telling this is the way to play you, like, what can you really do to beat it outside of just getting a stronger arm, which probably isn't going to happen?
I think, you know, if I had a mantra for this year, the 49ers, the 2024 49ers, is, man, they are slow. They are slow in key positions. They are slow in safety. They are slow in running back.
Well, that's why Mustafa sticks out. It's like, oh my God, a safety who can run and hit. Whoa, it's been a long time.
Right. With the exception now, people bring even like the rookie wide receivers. When have I ever seen another receiver do what Cowing did?
I can't remember. That's why I think we all want to see him. It's like, this is new. D. Winters, is he a good linebacker? I don't know, but he's fast as opposed to Devondre Campbell.
He's got to learn how to tackle somebody.
He can run. Like, Campbell can't even run. So I think, yes, I agree it's a slow ass team. So Winters should play. Mustafa should play. Green has made it better. Young, it's just old and slow. It really is.
Yeah, and I think, and here's the other piece of it is that what I think the Rams and other teams have taken advantage of is that they haven't been good as the Niners these last few years, but they've been developing players. So there's not such a drop off. And I think the 49ers have been caught in this like win now, not develop. And when I say develop, you really only develop when you step on that field. Like, it would to get in game development. And the Rams do that in spades, and the 49ers just don't. They don't.
No, they really don't.
You think a rookie wide receiver will ever break the record under Kyle Shanahan, like they did with the Rams?
No.
Ever?
No.
Most yards, most catches?
Kyle and McVay come from the same coaching tree, but they are very different. They have gone in different directions in terms of scheme, but also roster building. And the Niners can always act like they have, that they have a more consistent, stable operation than the Rams, but I think they're kidding themselves.
Here's the other thing. I think, the Rams head coach has the GM that does all that work, so he just has to focus on coaching. And I think Kyle, he gets so wrapped up in being the GM and the coach, of course there's a drop-off. You know what I mean? And that's
making
where
a lot of sense today, Karan.
There's just that drop-off. And here's the other thing.
I like John Lynch, but you're getting him fired today. It's rough.
And here's the other thing. John is such a stand-up guy. He would take that bullet with a smile on his heartbeat. He's doing this but
it's because it's kind of tough to, again, fire a Hall of Famer, John Lynch. So is there a way that they bring in a guy? Like, remember in Office Space, all of a sudden they just brought in Lumberg? No one got fired. All of a sudden there's Lumberg there. You know what I mean? Maybe they bring in their Lumberg and it's like, oh God.
Does John even want to do this long term? Like, I feel like John could make $1 bazillion.
Doesn't he want that ring though? I think he's hanging around for that ring, and once he gets it, he could leave and go back and be an announcer again. Assuming they get one, I think they all assume they're so close.
Okay, so what is more probable? This being a 10-7 or a 9-8 team, right? Them getting bounced in the first round, rebuilding for the next 2 or 3 years with the cap hit, developing young receivers, and then 4 to 5 years we're in our window again. He's going to stay for that long, you think?
No.
Probably not.
No.
And that's probably what's going to happen.
So, yeah, I mean, to me, like, this season comes down to the Niners aren't making any adjustments. They're not going to make any deadline trades unless I'm wrong. What they're going to do,
trades are going to be getting McCaffrey back and getting Greenlaw back. That's
exactly.
That's their.
So
they're going to spin it.
You're depending on one guy who ruptured his Achilles and one guy who was on the verge of rupturing his, so he went to Germany. And if those guys come back and are the players they were last year, then yeah, absolutely the Niners could go on the run and win the Super Bowl. Saving that doesn't feel like their year. And what are the odds that Christian McCaffrey comes back, is the level he was last year, stays healthy, no setbacks? Like, I wouldn't bet on it.
No, it feels like, and here's the other thing. If Kyle was just as taken aback by McCaffrey's injury as we were. Like, he basically was like, oh crap. And he hasn't adjusted anything. And I also, like, you can't give Jordan Mason the ball like 3 times a game. You can't throw him a screen pass.
I'm not allowed to.
They must not trust him. He must have a fumbling issue. He must.
Then throw it to use check. You give him $1 bajillion a year and he's so important.
So any other person would have gotten maybe more separation than that Juszczyk did in that play, but that linebacker who's not fast was stuck on him like glue.
Can they get a third down back that and get like Patrick Taylor Jr.? What would you say you do here? Like, Isaac Guerrero isn't a third down back. Jordan Mason isn't a third down back. Patrick Taylor just plays special teams. Isn't there a third down back in the world? Like, running back is the easiest position to fill ever. There's not one third down back they can find. Jerick McKinnon has to be alive.
Yeah, I agree. Jared McKinnon could do that. I also feel like we are also seeing that part of the reason why the pass blocking has been really bad and the pressures is that Jordan Mason is not as good a blocker as Christian McCaffrey. And neither is Isaac Guerrero. And I feel like some of that is compounded in when they're holding the ball too long.
Also, McCaffrey doesn't block very much. He's usually running a route.
But when he does, he's a great. He's great.
Yeah, he is.
He's great.
Shady Zay says, need to put more trust in Cowing, play him. Marcelo C says, thank you, Grant, for being a real fan. For you. Ruiz, Super Bowl champ, says, Rams winning the West. Coming whiners. Okay. Well, as we think about that, let's make some sleeper picks as we think about the Rams potentially. Okay, Jordan Mason. What do you think? You're the sleeper man today. Yards, touch. We could do rushing. We could do receiving yards. How about receiving yards? 10.5. Think he'll get it?
No way.
10.5 receiving yards. No way. I like that one.
Not happening.
Brock Purdy. They only give us touchdown rushing yards for Brock. 17.5.
Absolutely. That's the best play they have this year. It's him rolling.
It is the best play they have this year. I agree. Kittle, will he score a touchdown today? Or we could do yards.
Well,
do whatever we want.
I would say touchdowns because it's a primetime game. I think Kittle gets up for those games.
I like your pick so far. I like where your head's at. I'm with you on that. Anders Carlson, Fred Warner. 5.5 solo tackles. That's interesting. 5.5.
Seems like easy money. Yeah.
I think that one's easy money against the Cowboys. Jair Brown not having a great year. Tackles, though, for DBs, I can stay away from that. The kicker. What about Cowboys? Dak. Looks good for you there.
What's the yardage? What are they saying?
249.5.
Yes.
You know why?
Is there any other quarterback that gets more garbage yards than Dak Prescott?
Always has, right? No question. CeeDee Lamb. We could do touchdowns. We could do not that one. Touchdowns. Receptions. We could do receptions.
6.5. I'm going to say under.
This team's been a mess this year. Under coming off a bye week. CeeDee Lamb.
I think so because I think the 49ers corners are better.
They are really good. Renardo Green's been playing well. Rico. No. Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh God, he's still in the league.
Yeah, will he score a touchdown?
No, he's not.
Hell no. Who is this guy? Cavante Turpin. Will he score a touchdown?
Oh yeah, I'm
I
gonna
like
say
betting against people I've never heard of to
I'm
score
gonna say
touchdowns.
no. I think
I'm
he
gonna say
played
no on Cavante
No.
Turpin.
Yeah.
8. If we get them all right, we could win $1,100.
Oh, look at that.
I don't. Let's put 25 on the flex though, just to be conservative. Download the Sleeper app. Use promo code Cohn. Get entered to win 2 tickets to. No, I already gave those away. Get entered to win the signed Ricky Pearsall jersey, which is almost. It's better.
It's
because
better.
Ricky. That's something that you can have forever.
Correct.
Tickets. You know what I'm saying? Okay. The Niners are 3-4. What is the goal for this season? Are they thinking about running the table, getting the number 1 seed? What is the objective
Number 1
here?
seed's out of here. Number 1 seed's out of here. You blew that when you lost against the Rams and Arizona. You blew that right out of the water. They've got to go.
They are in last place in the NFC West for people who are just tuning in. Niners in last place, 4th place.
But here's the thing, like, okay, because I'm the fan, right?
Were they a game out of first place though?
I'm going to say they're going to be in first place because Seattle's going to lose to the Bills. And I think the Cardinals will lose to the Dolphins because they have Tua back. So the 49ers could be in first place 4-4 with their bye and feeling really good about themselves, right? So in my mind, they have to get the 3rd seed, no lower than the 3rd seed. And here's why. Because I feel like they have an advantage in that because I feel like the NFC North teams are basically on paper and when we play them are better than the Niners, right? We'll see how they are because it'll be interesting how the Bears defense goes up against Kyle, right? And that offense. Also, they have a hard time with scrambling QBs with the exception of Goff. They all can scramble. So in my mind, if they're the 3rd seed, it'll protect them from playing those NFC North teams because they should cannibalize each other, play against each other, right? If they're the 4th seed, they're either going to play the Lions or Minnesota first game because the 4 or 5 play together. That's not going to really work out.
No,
that's not going to work out.
And if they lose first round of the playoffs at home,
it's not going to work. So listen, in your mind, couldn't they say, hey, listen, look at how many injuries we had. We lost, we didn't have McCaffrey. We went to the divisional round. We had to play Minnesota at home. It was a close game. We lost. Moody missed an extra point. You could see that.
Maybe.
Right? And
but it's like, from the other perspective, it's like, yeah, but you had your quarterback. You had Brock. You had Debo. You had Kittle. You had Bosa. You had Warner. I mean, you were favored to win every week this year, and yet 9-8, first round exit. It just seems like you underperformed.
If it's a first round exit, yes, but I'm talking about if they win their first round,
then
go to the divisional round, and I think everyone's okay.
Yep. I do think it's funny though. Like I think again, the Yorks are not the DeBartolos. Well, kind of, but Jed is not freaking Eddie, and in 1996, year 8 for George Seifert, 12-4. I believe they win their first playoff game and then lose to the Packers in the divisional round. Maybe they didn't even play the wild card round.
It was, no, they did. They were the first seed.
1996 49ers
Weren't
stats.
they the number 1 seed?
Let me check real quick. So this is Seifert's last year 8. No. They go 12-4. They play the Eagles in the first round. They beat them 14-0. Then they go to Green Bay, who I think they were the number 1 seed. Get the doors broken up. 35-14.
Yeah, I remember that.
Green Bay goes on to win the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Eddie doesn't give a damn. He fires Seifert right on the spot. You're right.
Looking back, was Seifert a better coach than Mariucci?
Seifert was out of the league 3 years later. He was older at that point. So it's not like a definite one-to-one comparison to Kyle Shanahan, who's 45.
Right? He went to Carolina.
He went to Carolina, had one good year, had one awful year, got fired, and never coached again in the league.
Got it.
He went 1-15.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. Did you hear Steve Young on the radio this week? He was like, "What? The goal is not to win the division. The goal is to win the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear anyone of the Niners talking about winning the NFC West. Like that is not
So I think that's
lowered
changed now.
expectation.
I think we heard it from Jed last year. There's a difference now. It is not. We are removed from the banners of winning is everything. We are in a state of 49ers where winning the division and making the dance, as they like to call it, is the goal. Because anything can happen. It's just luck, right? It's just luck.
Sounds like the Cowboys to me. Sounds like the Niners looked down their noses at Dallas. I wonder if Niner fans even know that Dallas has had 3 consecutive 12-win seasons, 3 in a row. You know why? Who cares? Does it matter? No. Are they a joke? Absolutely. And I think that's what the Niners are flirting with.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, there's not a coincidence they've paid Dak and they're the worst they've ever been now.
Huh?
They're the worst they've ever been.
Yeah. So if you want to peek into the future of what the Niners could look like, it's Brock Purdy making a hell of a lot of money, a lot of these old guys getting released, and a rebuild while the quarterback's one of the highest paid players in the league. That's scary.
I also am looking at the landscape of the league, and this is where I think the GM thing comes in. Is Grant, like, everyone thinks Kyle in the mainstream media like isn't the GM, but we kind of know that he's kind of pulling the strings. Those other teams in the NFC have been doing a great job with their GMs. For example, the team you think Washington's going away anytime soon this year?
Nope.
Or anytime soon?
They have a strong general manager.
Philadelphia, you think they're going to go anyway anytime soon?
Strong general manager.
Strong general manager. And again, look within the division. You think Seattle's going to go anywhere? No, they have strong general manager.
Strong general manager. Rams, strong general manager.
Packers, strong general manager.
Strong general manager.
Do we not see it? Do we not see the? I think people lose track.
You know who? Chiefs, strong general manager. Brett Veach.
Ravens. There's not a coincidence here. And here's
strong
the
general
other
manager.
thing.
Yep.
I think everyone's missing the point. I think Kyle needs to let go of that and hire someone, or tell John it's your baby, because I feel like John does hit because John knows what to find. I think where he
trusts his scouting department. The scouting department's good.
He does.
He does, and the scouting department precedes him. It's like a lot of guys that Balky and Harbaugh brought in. Tariq Ahmad, he's been here since 2014.
They're good.
They're good.
They're good. Name me another team where the backup comes in and you're like, oh, he was better. And you're like,
consistently. Every time.
And it's not just like one position. It could be any position. And you're like, why didn't they start this guy? Our safety, why were they even starting Hufanga when this guy's like a missile launcher?
Or George Odom actually was on the field for multiple weeks, giving up touchdowns. So it's like, what about Malik? What? You didn't see that?
He's just, and that's just one example. Yeah. Right? Running back. Why wasn't Mason playing last year? Why?
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell had carries in the Super Bowl. What? Why? I mean, Mason's demonstrably better. Say whatever you want about Elijah Mitchell or Mason's limitations. He's demonstrably better than Mitchell.
You don't think Mason could have broken a few tackles and it could have been 3rd and 4 instead of 3rd and 12 like it was during the Super Bowl?
You know who broke no tackles in the Super Bowl? McCaffrey.
It's true.
You know why? Because he fumbled. And then he went into self-preservation mode. It's truth. Watch the film.
He's a human.
He is. Shady Zay says, never heard of Ricky until draft. Cowing 7th all-time total yards in college football ever. What did Ricky do? Stop sleeping on Cowing. Is that true?
Yeah, I did look at that. That actually, because I was like, who is this? Who's this Ricky guy? Cowing has some pretty good stats.
He's a good player. That stutter move, he did it in preseason as well. It's kind of deadly. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten, says they could do to Lynch what Denver did to Elway.
Yeah.
Yep. They could sort of like retire him to the front office, to vice president, something like that. Marcelo, we're giving you a promotion. You no longer have any say over personnel. You're doing great. Marcelo C says, what?
No, and what's his name? Elway just became the voice. The general manager never had to talk. It was just Elway doing all the talking. So,
right.
That's funny.
Marcelo C says, why did Michael Jackson go to Kmart? Because he heard the kids. Oh, thanks. Appreciate you. Michael Jackson jokes for $5. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten, says Turpin scored Dallas's only TD last year. Damn it. Against the Niners? Damn it. Well, he won't do it 2 years in a row. all day, every day. Kim says that's the new generation Niner fan, always bringing up stats and just making the playoffs like it's a flex. It's the Cowboys do. Okay, so 3 teams in the NFC West, 3-4. 1 team's 4-3. There are 0 dominant teams in the NFC West. The division is waiting, begging for some team to assert itself. And when it does, it seems like it could be dominant for the next few years. And it seems like the quarterback position is going to be at the crux of this transition. How do you see this one going?
So I don't see Matthews staying around for more than 2 or 3 years, correct? Maybe another year, maybe 2.
Another year, yeah.
So what are the odds of the Rams getting a franchise quarterback?
They got Jimmy.
So I just from a probability standpoint, take the Rams off. They've won a Super Bowl. They're going to be in a little bit of a flex. They're going to find, if even if McVay stays, he may retire when the minute that Stafford retires, because I think he got his Super Bowl. He got his money. He's good. He's not a lifer like I think Shanahan will be. You know what I mean? So I think he doesn't do it for, he's not in it to stay around until he's like 60 or 70 like some other coaches are. I think McVay has got other things that he can do in his life. And
it seemed like he almost went to the announcer booth a couple of years ago. Right? Thought about it. Yeah.
If they didn't give Stafford, I think they would have gone.
I think so.
Gone.
Yeah.
So the other, do we think Geno Smith can be that for the next 10 years? Honestly.
No, I know he did well last week, and he has all these good games where I don't watch, but whenever I'm watching, he sucks.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. So bring it back full circle. I would say in the huddle, let's make Geno beat me, because Geno's going to make some plays, but he's going to throw it to the cornerback as well, right? Yeah. And so I would make Geno beat me, and that's not a franchise quarterback.
No,
right?
No, absolutely not. So franchise quarterback is we're playing too high. If you want to run the ball, great. Those are just plays where your quarterback isn't throwing. So go ahead.
Correct.
You want to run your offense through Edgerrin James today? Great. We don't have to worry about Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and Peyton Manning. Like, go ahead, please. But that's not how anyone's going to approach the Niners or the Seahawks.
No.
And that's what's crazy about the Niners. It's like they lose Christian McCaffrey, and the game plan still is we got to stop Jordan Mason. It's like, damn.
Correct.
Damn.
So Rams gone, Seahawks gone. There's 2 teams left. It's Kyle, right? Kyler in Arizona. Do you think he can be that for the next 10 years? He has a wide receiver that's a generational talent.
Is he? I don't know about Marvin Harrison Jr. I like Marvin Harrison Sr. a lot better. I don't know about Kyler, man. He makes some great plays. He's a playmaker, but like from the pocket, can he see anything? I don't know. I'm not sure he's actually seeing anything.
You should, if you have time, which you probably don't, YouTube how many times Harrison Jr. is wide open and Kyler doesn't even see him.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't see anything.
He doesn't see him at all.
I don't know about Kyler.
There's no one even near him. He's like waving, no one, and multiple times.
That's not good.
Multiple times.
Yeah, it's not good.
So we got 3 quarterbacks currently that we don't say. All right, they're not going to be the franchise 10 years. I agree with you. That leaves Brock.
Yeah.
Can Brock do it for 10 years? What does Brock need? What does Brock need to be that?
What does Brock need? He needs
because the teams
the best. He needs the offensive player in the league, the offensive player of the year at running back.
So he needs a running back that is comparable to Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, like some guy who could be the best running back in the league and a guy who could maybe play slot receiver too and has Hall of Fame talent when healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wide receivers. Here's the other thing. I think he needs to go back to what they were doing last year and have wide receivers that can take a 5-yard in cut and turn into a 30-yard gain. Like they need yak wide receivers again, because I think what they're doing now isn't sustainable with his arm.
I would disagree. To me, I think they need more guys like Jennings who are big and can make contested catches, because I don't think they're going to be getting many more yak opportunities. I think this is the new reality for them, what they have to face. Small windows, tight windows. And I think that's why you saw Jennings kind of step up, because they need someone with that type of skill set to throw to. 6'3", making catch. I mean, he had guys like that in college too. Akeem Butler, he liked guys like that. He's successful with Kittle, big guys.
Yes, big guys. Okay, so
or little ones like 5'7" Cowing. I don't know.
So to me, the next couple of years are going to be so important because they arguably have a leg up on the rest of the teams. Two of the teams, their quarterbacks are on the older end and are going to be retiring. One's going to be retiring relatively soon. I can't see Geno in the league for more than 5 years. Can you?
No.
And Kyler's young, but once he loses that athletic ability to run at that size,
it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that size being short. He's not a big guy.
No. He doesn't take contact. No. Lamar does. No.
Right. Yeah, but Lamar's a lot bigger than him.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
So to me, again, it goes back to that conversation. They need to draft. They need to either say, hey, we're going all in with Brock and draft around his, strengths, because right now they're operating around the strengths of Kyle Shanahan, and that's got to change.
One thing, though, where the Niners could lose the division for the future, let's say they give Brock Purdy all the money, and he's not worth it, and one of those other three teams drafts a quarterback who happens to be good. Then the Niners are screwed.
That's the risk. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what happened. I mean, they got a third-round pick in Russell Wilson, who made our life a living hell for 10 years. Right. For 10 plus years. And
all of a sudden, Seattle or the Rams could be that team where they're stacked and they're not paying their quarterback. Where the Niners are that's what they used to be. It's what they are now, but they won't be that in a few years.
It's a full circle. So the teams that get it right are the ones that this is our quarterback and we're going to build around him and we're going to build around his limitations. And the team that really did that well, that they probably should model, and I know that people are going to laugh, but it was the Saints with Drew Brees and Sean Payton. And I think that's what they decided to cater the whole offense around Drew and his expertise, and they were in contention for a decade until he left.
Yep. But they didn't win, except for 09.
They did. Yeah, they won. They won one. They got one.
They won one. They won one. Against what? Was that?
Peyton.
Peyton. True. Free Lil Durk. I have no feelings about Lil Durk. Ruiz says Rams have a young team and would trade for a quarterback. They might.
They
might. Denial says Def feels like Harbaugh 8-8 season. It's important to remember that team was 7-4. But the backbreaker was Seattle. Is this Kansas City a backbreaker? Like, are the Niners going to go lay an egg against the Cowboys? It's possible. I don't necessarily expect it, but if they do, we know this team is broken. It's a good test.
If they don't beat the team that they usually curb stomp, it's going to be an issue.
It's a broken team.
It's a broken team.
And then you got to look again. The Yorks have to look at Kyle like, what's your excuse? Oh, you didn't have McCaffrey. This is what happens when you don't have McCaffrey. Well, are we going to have McCaffrey for the next 5 years? Like, what is your plan post McCaffrey? Put it all on Brock. Well, that's what you're doing now, and it's not working. So,
and I think you brought it up. There's just this weird dynamic, and I also feel like it's time for Kyle to get rid of his veteran players that have been there with him because he's kind of losing that edge. He needs to bring a new young core with Brock because I feel like the players that are playing really hard and playing hurt and playing are the young guys.
Yep.
The young guys who don't have a contract.
All I know is with the older guys, it's like there's always an ailment they have for practice. It's like, oh, Nick Bosa's elbow hurts. He can't practice today. Turns out he's had the injury for a month. He's got a wrap on it. It's like, okay, I'm not saying he doesn't, but it's like elbow can't help. But it's like these other guys practicing no matter what. Find a way to get it done. I don't know.
Don't you think that if your quarterback is a timing quarterback, wouldn't you want the receivers that he's going to throw to during a game to be there during practice?
I would want that. Kirabel Tedeschi says, should the Niners convert CMC to slot wide receiver wide back to conserve his health? Yeah, I'm sure he'll go for that.
Don't lie. I mean, that would be a smart decision on his part.
I feel like his receiving ability is a little overstated. Like, people are scared of him, and he's a great check down option. He can run those little choice routes. But I was watching highlights of the 1994 of Steve Young. I don't know why. I typed in Steve Young 1994, my favorite player, favorite season. And there's highlights of him throwing deep touchdown passes up the seam to Ricky Waters. They never call plays like that for Christian McCaffrey.
They call one play against Philadelphia where he did that choice route and he went up against that linebacker. That's the only time. I mean, they could.
They could.
Right?
I'd like to see him do it.
Could.
Anyway, practice starts in a half an hour. It doesn't seem like Juwan Jennings is going to be there. I don't know if there's going to be any surprises, but a few weeks ago, Brandon Ayuk wore the wrong shorts, and I was there to watch it. So I need to be there to see if there's any drama, because there's drama. Drama is afoot in Santa Clara. Karan, great show. You killed it today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back later. See ya.